Power to the truth. This is Margo. This is Thursday, March the 14th, 2019, 4:35 p.m. Pacific Time, United States of America. So we've got some new methane data to go over, then some news items, and then earthquakes. So here's what's happened on cams. The last day that I showed data, a couple of days ago, the data was from last Tuesday, a week ago, and then yesterday they didn't have any methane data up. It was gone. And then today, this morning, so that was okay. So on Wednesday they had no methane data up, and then today they had Thursday data up this morning. I didn't record it. I didn't have time. I was doing a bunch of stuff. And then I come to record the show, and now Thursday is gone, and they have Friday from last week. So we don't know what happened Wednesday and Thursday on methane on cams. I don't know why methane is the only one they can't keep current, but whatever. They also don't have carbon dioxide current. It usually runs along the same schedule as methane. But, you know, everybody wants to see methane more than carbon dioxide, I think. So, anyway, so what we have here is Friday, March the 8th. From the Arctic view surface level. So this is where it left off on Thursday, and there was reddish orange and reddish release coming up out of this Chukchi Sea, and it's actually coming up from the coastline and across, and a little reddish here, and then in the Laptev Sea, and then more release out of the Kara Sea, and then out of the Yamal Peninsula and around Novaya Zemlya, and off the coast of Greenland, and then it had moved across and was releasing out of Canada. We also see it releasing out of Norway. We see a new building coming up, building of methane, and releasing coming up out of Russia here and here. So that's where it left off on Thursday. So I have the movie loaded up so we can see the data then for Friday, and then it goes into this last Tuesday into the forecast period. And the forecast periods are pretty accurate. So at the end of the forecast period, they're showing another high release in this Kara Sea and on the Yamal Peninsula. So here's pretty good size release coming out of Siberia here. So here it is. They released, and then it's building again and releasing again here at the end of the forecast period. So here's where we were at the end of Friday with data. So it's just frustrating to not be able to put dots together when the data is a week old. But, you know, it is what it is, and it's the best we can do. And now I put it on global view, and I have this movie loaded up so that you can see what's going on in your part of the world. It's jumpy the first time through, and then it smooths out. We see high releases in the United States and in Canada up here off the west coast on California side. and in the center of South America, parts of Africa. It's peppered around. It's not as bad as it was, frankly, a couple of weeks ago. It looks like it's calmed down, but just wait until summer hits the northern hemisphere. I'm expecting it to be just black all the way across. Then high release from India and China and Indonesia and all those places. So here it is at the end of Friday, and if you want to see, like at 500 HPA, that's a level that a lot of climate scientists like to use. So that's where it was globally on Friday. At the end of Friday, with the data at 500 HPA, it was a lot higher up here, off this Siberia coast. It's in the brown zone there, dark brown. So there's that. So I'm going to leave this as a backdrop, and whenever they do have new data, I will certainly share it. If it uploads and behaves correctly, I will certainly do that. Next, we're still tracking this tropical cyclone Idai, and here it is on NASA Worldview. It's already made landfall at Baja in Mozambique over here. And this whole area, whole bunch of people have died. It's already been very destructive. It made landfall just now, pretty recently, and we can't see part of it because of this black area that they do on NASA Worldview. Also of interest in Africa is they have massive dust storms going on, and you can see it in the atmosphere. This is from the Sahara dust storms going on, and it's coming across the Atlantic. So we can see it really tightened up the cyclone, and it moved down. Here it was yesterday, and here it is today. So it's really moved on in, and it's still hurricane force or cyclone force as it's moving across the land. So on Climate Reanalyzer, here's what it looks like, and we can see the eye of it is on land, and the rain, it's from the yellow up into the red range. So a lot of rain dumping. Also, while we're here, in the United States, they had that super bomb or storm or whatever it was that hit the whole Midwest, and it's moving across. It's dumping all kinds of rain. They're having flooding in lots of different places. Denver had, they shut down all kinds of flights. They shut down the airport. They had blizzard conditions and lots of snow, and you can see this blue, that's the snow where it's moving, and the green is the rain. So we got lots of storms, mega storms going on across the world here. And this is, I believe, as a result of abrupt climate change. So this is from weather.com, it says Tropical Cyclone Idai, deadliest weather disaster of 2019, kills 122 in Mozambique and Malawi. Landfall was at 12:30 a.m. Friday, that was their time, near Baja, Mozambique, maximum winds at 110 miles per hour. So it hit in the middle of the night, so that's really not good. More than 100 dead from Tropical Cyclone Idai. It's made landfall in Africa. At a glance, flooding from Tropical Cyclone Idai has left 122 people dead in Mozambique and Malawi. More than 140,000 people have been displaced by the storm. The storm made landfall on Mozambique's shore early Friday morning local time. And here's a tweet. As Tropical Cyclone Idai comes back ashore in southern Africa, flooding from the system that became the storm has killed 122 people in Mozambique and Malawi, making it the deadliest weather disaster of 2019. The initial system killed at least 66 people due to flooding in Mozambique. Flooding has also destroyed more than 5,700 homes and impacted more than 140,000 people in the southern African country. Flooding from the storm's first round inundated nearly 650 square miles, destroyed 18 hospitals, 938 classrooms, and injured 122 people. Early Friday morning local time, the storm made landfall along the coast of Mozambique with maximum winds near 110 miles per hour. Evacuations were ordered along coastal regions of the country as the cyclone approaches. The government has decreed a red alert due to the continuing rains and the approach of the tropical cyclone Idai, expected to reach the country between Thursday to Friday. Look at that. It's already so destructive. In Malawi, the government declared a state of emergency after 56 people died and hundreds of thousands were displaced by flooding, the Evening Standard reported. In the southern Malawi village of Methane, thousands of residents who survived the first flood but were left without shelter are huddled in a hospital, but that has yet to be fully constructed, according to Al Jazeera. I've lost everything such that only these clothes I am wearing now are my only possessions, nothing else. Dorika Mateba, 83, told Al Jazeera she had to be rescued by boat during the first round of flooding. Before the storm formed over the Mozambique Channel this week, it was a disturbance that settled over the region and unleashed torrential rains that flooded much of the two neighboring countries. The system moved out to sea, formed into a tropical cyclone, and is heading back to Mozambique's shore. Now considered the deadliest weather disaster of 2019, Idai is expected to bring highly destructive winds, heavy rains in excess of 2 feet, and a 20-foot storm surge. The storm is expected to make landfall Thursday night near Baja, Mozambique's fourth largest city, with 530,000 residents. That's awful. And you can click here and see more about it. It's made landfall. It will produce a life-threatening storm surge of at least 3 meters or 10 feet. Deadly rainfall flooding has already occurred this month in Mozambique and southern Malawi. Destructive wind gusts are also likely. It made landfall between 12 and 12:30 a.m. local time early Friday morning. So there it is. You can see it's moving on to shore. It's already moving in, and so you can just keep clicking the links, and here's a good picture of it. There's the eye, right, moving right over Baja. That's the eye wall. The eye wall around here. Idai's eye wall will be pumping water into the bays around Baja and will drive water up the Pungwe River. The storm surge could be higher than 6 meters or roughly 20 feet at the mouth of the Pungwe River over the next couple of hours. Coastal areas near and south of Baja will be inundated with potentially life-threatening storm surge exceeding 3 meters or roughly 10 feet. So Zimbabwe is this next country right over, and so it's moving on in. So when it hit land, they had 110 mile per hour winds, and it was moving at 9 miles per hour. And they're expecting, as it moves in, Friday evening to go down to 60 miles an hour, and when it hits Zimbabwe on Saturday evening, for it to be down to 30 miles an hour. So we need to just keep all of these people in our prayers. That's just, how would you like to be 83 and lose everything to that? So I think that's all I'm gonna cover on that. Everything else is just everything else I have here for links is repetition of that. Next, I have an article from Zero Hedge about what's going on in the United States weather-wise. And this was today at 2:37 p.m. Bomb cyclone detonates over 70 million Americans as hurricane winds batter central U.S. A meteorological bomb detonated over the central U.S. of historic proportions. You know, this reminds me of that movie Day After Tomorrow. It just really does. I think we're experiencing the effects of an ice-free Arctic, or getting close to it with the messed up jet stream and mega storms and atmospheric rivers like this one coming up through the Atlantic, and as a result of what's happening, look at that jet stream. That is not a normal jet stream. It's just not. See how it's split in two here, and it's just looping around. It's supposed to be nice and tight up here around the Arctic, but those days are over. Even the southern hemisphere's jet stream is loopy, see? So the National Weather Service announced a meteorological bomb detonated over the central U.S. of historic proportions. And here's the low over it, right over the center. And this is rain and this is snow. As the powerful winter storm developed midweek, heavy snow pounded northern Colorado, including Denver, western Nebraska, eastern Wyoming, central South Dakota, and southeastern North Dakota. There's another picture. As expected, a historically strong storm pushed through the plains Wednesday into Thursday with powerful winds, snow, and blizzard conditions. A wind gust of 97 miles per hour was recorded near Colorado Springs, along with several inches of snowfall. This created blizzard conditions and blowing snow that continues today in much of the plains of Colorado. This has caused road closures and travel headaches across this region. The system is also responsible for flooding across the upper Midwest, as well as severe weather and tornadoes in the Ohio Valley on Thursday. Kills a police officer, and Denver Airport cancels more than 1,000 flights before closing all runways as hurricane-force wind gusts reach 100 miles per hour. That sounds like what we had a couple of weeks ago when my modem went out. Hundreds are stranded throughout Colorado interstates. There are many accidents occurred along Interstates 25 and 70 in Colorado. Dozens of roads remain closed in Colorado, Nebraska, Kansas, South Dakota, and Iowa on Thursday due to snow and flooding. Some of the significant closures include stretches of I-80 and I-70. They declared a state of emergency. The storm pulverized the high plains on Wednesday, with the rate of intensification resulting in bombogenesis, which describes storms whose central pressure drops 24 millibars in 24 hours. The lower the pressure and the quicker it falls, the more powerful the storm. National Weather Service recorded 350 wind gust reports of 50 miles an hour or more during the storm. And here's what it was centered right over the center of the United States. Look at that. Some locations were blasted with hurricane force gusts. Airlines canceled 2,000 flights and delayed another 2,700 due to hurricane force winds and severe weather. And then, going down under, for our friends down under, this is from Radio New Zealand. This is from today. Civil Defense accidentally sent out alert for a magnitude 6.6 earthquake. Civil Defense has mistakenly put out a warning for a magnitude 6.6 quake that reportedly hit south of the Kermadec Islands. Just before 4 p.m. today, it sent out a message to say it was assessing the tsunami risk for New Zealand after a 6.6 magnitude quake was recorded south of the Kermadec Islands. And here's the tweet. The tweet we have deleted related to an old earthquake notification. There is no current event. We apologize for confusion. However, a few minutes later it deleted the tweet and said it was an old earthquake notification, that there was no event today. Civil Defense has been calling people to apologize, and it is assessing how it happened. And Civil Defense Director Sarah Stewart Black told Checkpoint the incident would be investigated to make sure it didn't happen again. I can confirm there is no current earthquake event and there's no need for concern. Quote. The message was sent out from a training site. She said she would be looking at what went wrong from the technology point of view. We're trying to work out what exactly occurred and why a duplicate message of an old event was sent out. It wasn't a tsunami notification, and it didn't involve any instructions to evacuate. I apologize for any confusion or alarm the message may have created by being sent out. Well, we've seen things like this before. And they're usually doing some kind of test or upgrade. Or it could be a beta test to see how people would react. That's my thought. And last but not least for climate news today, this is a report that came out recently, March 13th, 2019, press release from United Nations Environment Program. The title is 3 to 5 degrees C temperature rise is now locked in for the Arctic. So, if anyone's thinking about saving any Arctic sea ice, forget it. Even as Paris Agreement goals met, Arctic winter temperatures will increase 3 to 5 degrees C by 2050 compared to 1986 to 2005 levels. That's the Arctic winter temperatures. Thawing permafrost could wake sleeping giant of more greenhouse gases, potentially derailing global climate goals. Ocean acidification and pollution also posing major threats to Arctic. This is out of Nairobi on March 13th. Even if the world were to cut emissions in line with the Paris Agreement, winter temperatures in the Arctic would rise 3 to 5 degrees C by 2050 and 5 to 9 degrees C by 2080, devastating the region and unleashing sea level rises worldwide, finds a new report by UN Environment. Meanwhile, rapidly thawing permafrost could even accelerate climate change further and derail efforts to meet the Paris Agreement's long-term goal of limiting the rise in global temperature to 2 degrees C. Other environmental pressures on the Arctic identified by the paper include ocean acidification and plastic pollution. Anyway, they're saying they need more urgent climate action to steer away from the tipping points. Hey, we've had tipping points. We are past the tipping points, dude. We are past them. And they said even if global emissions were to halt overnight, winter temperatures in the Arctic would still increase 4 to 5 degrees C by 2100 compared to the late 20th century. So how much would it increase in the summertime? They're not telling us that. They're going to increase way more in the summertime than in the wintertime. That's all that people can wrap their minds around. All people are going to hear is 4 to 5 degrees C and not winter temperatures. They're not going to hear that. So anyway, it says we need to make substantial near-term cuts in greenhouse gas emissions, black carbon, and other so-called short-lived climate pollutants all over the world. I just go, my eyes just start glazing over when I read this stuff, because it's such bullshit. I'm sorry, it just is. I just can't take it. And it says they need to regulate the chemicals up there and in the Arctic and this and that and blah, 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 blah. And in the meantime, they're going to be mining for copper and drilling up there, and they're running all the big tanker ships through the Arctic and polluting it like that. And what about all the nano crap that's everywhere? You know, this is just lip service. It just makes me sick when I see stuff like this. But I had to share it because this is in the news, and if they say this, it's gonna be much worse. Much, much worse. So there's our climate news for today. I'm going to pause and clear up my cookies so I have a good clear recording, and I'll be right back for earthquakes. Don't go anywhere. Okay, I'm back, and now it's 5:12 p.m. as I start this part of the show. I have USGS pulled up for all magnitudes for the last 24 hours worldwide, and we're showing 251 earthquakes. And then out of those, we have 29 that are 2.5 magnitude and higher. So let's start with the oldest. Okay, we're going to start with Afghanistan, right up here. This one came in yesterday at 6:56 p.m. at 49 kilometers depth. It was a 4.5 near Canal, Afghanistan. Moving on around to China, was a 4.9 near Duoa, China at 10:32 last night. Then coming on around to Indonesia, here was a 4.6 off the coast of Sumatra near Banda Aceh at 10:28 this morning, 35 kilometers deep. Then there was a 4.4 near Kota Ternate at 2:52 this afternoon, 54 kilometers deep. Coming on around was a 4.7 near Lowengal, Papua New Guinea at 2:46 this afternoon. These are all Pacific time. That's my time zone. I have it set to a 4.4 near Lata, Solomon Islands at 12:14 this morning, 78 kilometers deep. Then coming up to the Philippines, there were two on this red line. The first was a 4.4 near Marihatag at 1:58 this morning, and a 4.6 near General Luna at 4:02 this afternoon. This one was 46 kilometers deep. These were in the ocean, so probably didn't cause any damage. Then following our ring of fire around a 4.9 near Agrihan, Northern Mariana Islands at 7:52 last night. Next, look at this. Right off the coast of Japan, not too far from Tokyo, was a 4.3 near Hasaki, Japan at 4:59 this morning, 48 kilometers deep. that wasn't big enough to cause any damage or to cause a tsunami, but it's showing movement. Now in South America, there was a 4.8 near Belén, Argentina at 8:09 this morning, 166 kilometers deep. Then a 4.5 near Magas, Ecuador at 2:02 this morning, 115 kilometers deep. Next, right up here in the Gulf of Panama was a 4.3 near Pecora, Panama. This happened at 12:09 this morning, 23 kilometers deep. Now, I've got something to share with everyone. In case you don't know where the Panama Canal was, because I didn't know, I looked it up. So let's go to Google Earth. And having an earthquake next to the Panama Canal is a little nerve-wracking in my book. It's just a little nerve-wracking. That's all I can say. I didn't mean to do that. In case people don't know what the Panama Canal is, it was built. It's an artificial waterway that was built so that ships could go from the Pacific Ocean to the Atlantic Ocean without going all the way around the bottom of South America, and vice versa. And it's 82 kilometers long. So here it is, and there's a city. Panama City is right here. Now the earthquake was right down here. So if you want to see where the earthquake was, we can get the coordinates on that. Okay, it's right here in the ocean, just to the east of Panama City and the canal. One of the entrances. Here's the entrance from the Pacific side. It goes in here, and then they have all these locks where it changes the water level and all this. And then the boats go through this channel. This is all man-made. Comes out here. And this is a lake. And then the boats go across the lake over to here. And they have to go back through the locks, changing the water level, so that it ends up, they can come out at the right water level for the Atlantic Ocean. And then they go out there. And that's the Panama Canal. Isn't that interesting? So to have an earthquake not too far away is just a little bit cause for concern. Let's see how far that was. So here's the beginning of the Panama Canal, and the earthquake was about right there. Done. 63 kilometers. It's how many? It's 39.33 miles. About 40 miles. So, at least it wasn't a very big earthquake. or I'm thinking it could have damaged something. That could have been a huge, huge mess. So there's the Panama Canal. And there it was. So then we had one up here just on the other side from Mexico into Guatemala, a 4.6 near Quito, Guatemala at 3:05 this morning. It was 190 kilometers deep. That's the deepest one so far. I think that's all of the international earthquakes. So now let's go to United States territories. We're going to start with Hawaii. We saw that 5.5 here yesterday, and today there are 12 of all magnitudes. We've got a 2.3, 1.8, 1.9, 1.9, 0.8, 1.9, 1.9, 1.9, a lot of 1.9s, 2.2, 0.7, 1.8, and 1.7. So we've had a couple in that Kilauea crater, some on the edge. Here's like 4 down here in the ocean to the south, and then just peppered around. So maybe that's calmed down a little bit. Now let's go over to Dominican Republic while we're in the neighborhood. We're showing 19 here today. We'll call them off a 2.2, 1.6, 1.6, 1.8, 2.0, 3.0, 1.5, 2.8, 1.6, 3.1, 3.2, 1.7, 2.5, 1.7, 2.8, 2.8, 2.1, 3.2, and 1.6. So we had a couple of 3s in there, and then mainly 2s. So we're having a cluster right down here at the southern end of Puerto Rico. We saw these here yesterday too. There's 7 right there, and then 2 more right there, so 9 on that southern end. So those weren't large enough to cause damage, but it is definitely showing movement. Now going up into the Alaska region. Let's see. What all we can get on the map here. I'm going to get all of Alaska. We've got 43 in Alaska from all magnitudes today. So let's see, let's get the bigger ones first. We've got 2 down here in the Aleutian Islands. There was a 3.6 near Amatignac Island at 7:05 this morning, and a 3.8 at the same near the same location at 4:10 this afternoon. Then on the mainland, it's a 2.5 near Y, Alaska at 12:42 this morning. A 3.2 near Healy at 7:16 this morning, 114 kilometers deep. And a 2.7 near Kobuk at 10:44 this morning. So now let's get a little bit more detailed look. Here is a 1.0 near Unalaska, Alaska at 10:06 this morning. Now this has really calmed down, this Cape Yakataga. Only one here today, a 2.3 that happened at 5:56 this morning. And our cluster here in Anchorage, and then here's that 3.2. So in this view we're showing 33. So the majority of them are right here. And they're mainly in the ones and low twos range. So there's that. There's some more peppered around. And we saw the one at Kobuk. Here's some more up through the state. And then a 2.3 near Koktovik at 10:34 this morning. Now moving on down into the lower 48. The east side is clear today. We've got more activity in Colorado. We have another one. We've got a 1.7 near Dove Creek again, where we've been seeing them for the last week or so. This one came in at 1:14 this afternoon. Utah looks active. There are 3 down here, a 2.4, a 2.7, and a 1.6. They all happened this morning between 6:43 and 7:01. Then moving on up, we've got 4 at Farron. Here's a 1.4 at a minus 0.5 kilometers depth, meaning the magma is moving up into the mountain. A 2.0 near Farron, 1.9 at a minus 0.8 kilometers depth at Farron, 1.4 at Farron, and 1.5 at Loa. Definitely showing movement. So there was Farron. Oh, we got more at Farron. You know, they call, here's Farron. That's the reporting station. So they're calling these 4 down here near Farron and this cluster up here near Farron. So let's look at that cluster. We've got 6 here, so a total of 10 for Farron. Here's a 2.0 near East Carbon City at 10:30 last night at a minus 3 kilometers depth, so it was high up in the mountain. 2.0 near Farron, 1.7 East Carbon City, 1.5 Farron, 1.8 Farron. So there's that. There's East Carbon. Is that? Yep, that's East Carbon City. So the 1.7 at East Carbon City was at a minus 2.8 kilometers depth, and the other one there was at a minus 3 kilometers depth, so almost the same. So again, happening in pairs. When did these come in? The first one came in at 10:30 last night, and the other one came in at 12:40, so just a little over 2 hours. Then here's a 0.9 near Salt Lake City that came in at 6:53 this morning. Next, moving on up into the Yellowstone area, we've got, oh, let me back out here. It looks like 5 on the map here. We're going to start with this 2.2 near Soda Springs, Idaho at 10:29 last night. Then here's a 1.4 near Old Faithful Geyser at 11:13 last night. We had 2 near West Yellowstone, Montana, a 1.1 and a 0.8. And a 1.2 near Lincoln, Montana at 11:54. So that's showing movement. And coming across to the Pacific Northwest, in Washington, we're showing 3 here today, a 1.3 near Victoria, Canada at 11:51 last night, 1.2 near Gold Bar, Washington at 11:57 last night, and a 2.1 magnitude explosion near Highland, Washington at 8:47 this morning at a minus 0.2 kilometers depth. That's pretty big for an that's a big earthquake for an explosion. See, right down here, right next to the Columbia River by Kennewick. So they're doing some kind of construction or blasting or something. Then down in Oregon, we're seeing 1 so far. 1.1 magnitude from another explosion near Bend, Oregon at 7 o'clock this morning, 3.5 kilometers deep. Coming on down into Northern California, we have 2 up here by Petrolia on the San Andreas Fault, where the Juan de Fuca plate comes in and the Cascadia subduction zone comes down, where they all meet right here. There was a 2.3 near Petrolia at 2:23 this morning, and a 2.2 near Petrolia at 9:32 this morning. Then also in Northern California was a 1.6 near Alder Springs at 2:08 this afternoon. And moving on across, was a 1.8 near Johnstonville at 12:53 this afternoon. Now coming into the Reno area, we've got a cluster going on at Cold Springs. We saw some here yesterday too. So I'll just call them off. A 0.6. This happened at 8:41 last night. A 1.3 at 1:29 this morning. A 0.8 at 1:56 this morning. A 0.6 at 2:50 this morning. And a 0.7 at 3:28 this afternoon. Here's Reno. Is that one? Oh, it's coming off the map. That 0.6 south of Reno that happened yesterday at 5:36. See, it just, oh, you saw it pop off the map. You hardly ever see this in action. That was in the Carson Range. Actually, this is Mount Rose, so that was in the Mount Rose area. And we had one in the middle of Pyramid Lake today. A 1.0 that happened last night at 8:24 p.m. Carson City looks clear. Lake Tahoe looks clear. The rest of the northern part of northern Nevada looks clear. Here was a 2.4 near Lovelock at 7:43 last night at 0 kilometers depth. We saw a couple there yesterday too. 1.9 near Austin at 1:47 this morning. 1.1 near Gabbs at 11:22 last night. 1.6 near Gabbs at 2:28 this morning. Then we've got some small ones down here in the Walker Lake and Hawthorne area. Here's a 1.0 near Hawthorne at 5:10 this morning. Moving on down. What's this? 1.3 magnitude explosion near Gabbs at 3:48 this afternoon. Deep, 8.9 kilometers deep. So that was underground. Whatever they were doing there, they were doing underground, maybe tunneling. Here's a 1.9 near Eureka at 8:37 last night. And then here's some small ones in the southern portion. Let's come up this east side of California. Here's a 2.4 near Ridgecrest at 4:42 this morning. Here's a little one in Death Valley. 0.5, they're calling it near Beatty, Nevada. That's the reporting station. So here at Little Lake and Coso Junction, we've got 18 today. 18, that's a lot. That's more than we normally see. See, they're piled up. See all of those? Little Lake. They're calling that at Little Lake. And they're calling it at Coso Junction. There's a 2.4 at 12:39 this morning. So I'm going to call these off because we normally don't see activity like this here. 1.1, and you can see it light up when I click on it. 0.5, 1.6. These were coming in like just minutes apart. 0.6, 0.8, 0.2, 1.2, 0 magnitude, 0.3, 2.4, 0.1, 1.0, 0.8, 1.6, 1.0, 0.4, and 0.3. So they started at 6:17. This one was, the first one was at 6:17 last night. They went through the night and into today, and the last one was at 4:18 this afternoon, that 0.3. So lots of activity there. Then we've got a cluster here. We've got 3, 4 at Big Pine, a 0.6, 0.8, 0.7, 1.1. And these, okay, the 0.6 was at 12:15 this morning. Then these others were this afternoon at 1:13, between 1:13 and 1:38. So just a little shaking there. Then moving on up into Mammoth Lakes and Long Valley, we've got 12 here today. So I'll call them off. 0.3, 0.4, 0.7, 0.7, 0.6, 0.6, minus 0.2, 0.5, 0.6, 0.4, 0.9, and 0.6. Then here's one up here. I think it's one. Yep, just one. A 0.8 near Mammoth Lakes. And Mono Lake. It's actually closer to Mono Lake there. Now let's come on over to the geysers. 32 here today. That's a high number. Let's see if any of these are over 2.5 magnitude. Yep. This one is a 2.5 that came in at 2:12 this afternoon at a minus 0.5 kilometers depth. So that's up in the mountain, up in the volcano, because that's an old volcano there. Most of these are under 1 or 1.1. Here's 1.2, and then the 2.5, and then they're back to under 1. And the last one was a 1.6 at 4:34 this afternoon. Coming on down. So 1.5 near Pacheco at 1:18 this afternoon. Did we get this one? 1.7 near Columbia at 8:39 this morning. Here's a 0.7 near Alum Rock to the east of San Jose at 9:06 last night. Then coming down the San Andreas fault line is a 2.0 near Ridgemark at 3:46 this morning. 1.1 near Pinnacles at 1:19 this afternoon. .7 near Atascadero at 8:23 this morning. We saw that 2.4 at Ridgecrest. Now coming into Southern California. Okay, Mexico, Baja looks clear. See if we can get these on the map. Get all of these on. We've got 36 here today in Southern California. I don't think any of these are 2.5 magnitude. No. So they're all under that. So let's just kind of scoot around and see what we can see. Here's a 1.3 magnitude quarry blast near Los Algodones, Baja, but it's in California, at 3:24 this afternoon at a minus 0.2 kilometers depth. Here's a 1.3 near Idlewild. Here's Salton Sea. Here's Kauai. See how many are in this area today. 23 small ones here today. 1.0 near Yucca Valley. 1.5 near Little Creek. Hold on. Here's a 1.7 near Glen Avon. Here's one in the ocean off the coast of La Jolla, 1.4 at 8:13 this morning. So I think that's a wrap. Uh-oh. Here's a new one. Harper, Kansas, 2.4. Happened at 5:06. 5.9 kilometers deep. What's this that just came in up at Alaska? 2.1 near Tanana at 5:37 p.m. Let's see if there's anything else that we need to look at, and then we'll wrap this up. We saw that 3.8 in the Aleutian Islands. We saw the Philippines, we saw Puerto Rico, we saw Indonesia, the geysers. I think that's a wrap. So, I just, every day that we're, uh-oh, look, here's a new one. That's a new one. That just came in. 4.4 near Naob, Indonesia at 5:30 p.m. just now. 62 kilometers deep. So every day that we're here is one day less that we have to prepare to leave. And like I say, time is short and we have less time every day to get ready to leave. And you can prepare in lots of different ways, but I recommend everyone get right with God and Jesus. Get your spiritual houses in order to make the exit, because when you've got that tsunami wave bearing down on you, you're not going to have time then. So now's a good time to do all of that. Just ask those 122 people over in Africa. Just ask them, did they have time to make a choice? No. No, when you're in the middle of something like that, you're just thinking about trying to save yourself. You're not thinking about getting right with God and Jesus. And if you haven't, You're not going to be under their protection. And even if you do die, what's going to happen with your soul? That's what I'm worried about for everybody. Because we're all going to die. We're all going to leave this earth plane one way or another. But what's going to happen to your soul? So it's just something to think about. So I love you guys. Till next time, God bless you. Go in peace and good night.